We hope everybody is doing well. And we just wrapped up a few hours ago our Trimarni camp for 2023, our first group triathlon camp for the season. I've lost count, but our first camp was in 2014 in Claremont before we moved to Greenville. And since then, we've done 2 to 3 camps every year since. So if you do the math, that's a lot of training camps and
a lot of experience.
Some tough moments, lots of great moments, but we definitely learn from every camp. And one thing that we really take pride in is making sure that our repeat campers have a new or different experience every time that they come. So we're always trying to change things up and do different types of workouts and layer the camp in ways that stresses them so that each camp feels like it's new and different and exciting. Although we do have a lot of our favorite routes that are worth repeating, but then also we really take the time to get to know our campers. And over the past few camps, I've been sending out a questionnaire so that we can really get to know their strengths, their weaknesses, and what they want to get out of camp. So that allows us then to be able to design the camp with everybody's fitness and abilities in mind so that everybody is safe and confident, but also can get something out of the camp.
Yep.
So I just want to briefly go through the camp. But before we do, I just want to talk about some of the important attributes of our campers. And I think a group camp, some people aren't comfortable with a group camp, but I do think that group training camps are extremely beneficial. And there are a few reasons why. Number one is that it puts you into situations that you would just not experience on your own. And that's being around other people, being around people who are faster than you, being around people that are slower than you, being around people that are of similar ability, putting yourself into different types of scenarios where you have to push hard, get out of your comfort zone, maybe work through some struggles where you may normally give up or take the easy way out. So that alone, just being in that environment gives you so many skills that you can then use for race day. Without that group training camp experience, it's really hard to say, okay, I'm going to be prepared for a race because you're going to go through all those similar emotions and feelings on race day. So it's great to do that in a very supportive and safe environment with your coaches watching over you. The other thing is when you're at a group training camp, we have to keep in mind that even though we get in a great workout, everybody gets in a great workout, that the purpose is to learn. You can train on your own anytime. And I think for a lot of athletes, the reason why they don't want to go to camps is one, they're afraid. They're afraid of looking, being embarrassed or not being able to keep up or whatever it is. Being out of their normal comfort zone. But I think another thing is they don't want to take time away from their normal training because at our camps, you might not be collecting the same miles, you might not be doing the similar routine, but the focus is to learn. And when you come to a Trimarni camp, it's really important to keep an open mind, to not be comparing what you could normally do on your own to what you do at camp, but to think about what is it that I'm taking away from this camp experience that I can then apply to my own training in my own environment, or on race day. So keeping an open mind is really important. And also taking constructive feedback. And we are here to support our campers and to help you in any way possible. And the most important thing for us is so that you can be safe and confident and be able to perform well on race day. So when we give athletes feedback on race in the training camps, it's really from a place that we see your potential. We want you to improve. And so we are giving you feedback that we feel can help you get more out of your journey, either decreasing the risk for an accident, decreasing the risk for an injury, or just helping you improve some bad habits so that you can be a better athlete. So we really appreciate that every athlete that comes to our camp does a great job taking that constructive feedback and wanting to get better.
Yeah, and really, there's no athlete out there that would be too good to not to need to learn any new skills or anything new or take away anything from the camp. And with our experience, we work with athletes who, on the paper they were really accomplished and they've done multiple Ironman races, but then when we get to work with them one-on-one, we always find a way how to, maximize their performance and how to better their skills to help them be even better, right? And that's kind of like the almost like the misleading aspect of experience when somebody say, "Oh, I have done 2 Ironmans and 7.5 Ironmans," and when people hear this, like, "Oh wow, this person is really experienced. My buddy, he's done 2 Ironmans and 7.5, right? So he is so good." But then, it's amazing how many times we actually see athletes like that and realize, like, wow, I don't really understand how they were able to do that, because they don't have the skills that are really required, or that they could be way better, expend less effort, and have a better result.
Yeah, nobody is too good for a skills camp or a training camp. You want to be there to work hard, but also to learn.
Yeah, it's almost like when you say the word skills, like a skills camp, and some athletes hear this like, "Oh, that's not for me. That's for beginners. I already done a Ironman."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and so we definitely see athletes that skip a lot of steps in their development because they sign up for a long distance race. But if you can master those fundamentals, you're going to get so much more out of the sport. So a little bit about our camp schedule. So the first day, we actually needed, as camp hosts, we are constantly on our toes and we have to modify and adjust things. We try to stick to a schedule, and we can really feel for race directors when we plan our camp. So we're constantly looking at the weather. And if you think about it, think about races where you're like, the race director changes the course last minute or maybe in advance. And then you're like, well, we could have done this. Well, that kind of happened to us this year, in that we probably could have ridden outside on Friday for the first day, afternoon of our camp. It was drizzling, but they had predicted storms and thunder and lightning. So we really took it upon ourselves to find a plan B and to confirm that plan B. And once we decided on that plan B, we let all the athletes know so that they could be prepared, and we committed to it. It wasn't any kind of back and forth. It was just, yep, this is what we're going to do. So that's just something to keep in mind too, when you do come to a camp, that you learn how to be a little bit more flexible, and that you might expect one thing and it might change, and being able to be emotionally grounded and not be attached to something is a great skill to have for race day. So the first day we focused on technique and skills in the pool. A lot of our athletes hadn't swam long course in a long time or ever. So we really focused on technique and took our athletes through a lot of different drills, divided up into different lanes based on swimming abilities, just so everybody can feel like they can just focus on themselves and not be too fast or too slow for somebody else. So we spent an hour in the pool working on the different techniques, and I think it was a very successful session. We do pack a lot into our days, so normally 3 workouts a day, but we do try to plan adequate time for recovery and refueling so that athletes are able to arrive to every session in a good state. And the next workout was a run workout. So for the run workout, we went to Furman and we parked at the amphitheater. We did a little run warm up. Everybody was pretty warmed up because it was just an hour after the swim. And so we just did a little warm up, and then we did a really great running session. Corel took everybody through the session. And since we're really big on strength and resiliency and efficiency, we did some hills. We started with some hill accelerations to kind of activate the posterior chain. We worked on some best easy pace, and we did a loop and then we even within that loop divided athletes so that nobody felt like they were too slow, that they could focus on their own workout and other people could focus on their own session. So it worked out great that nobody was excluded. And it was a tough workout. We did a lot of different hill work and bounding, and it was a tough session, but everybody did great.
Yeah, and as we learned through the years doing these camps, we kind of know how to organize each workout session. So it's not just like, hey, we're going to go for a run and now people just spread out and we don't see them for an hour. So we always keep it in kind of like the circle, or like on one segment of the road, and we do the workout so everybody can see each other, everybody can cheer each other, and just kind of being pulled by the others to do the best they can. And this workout was really great. And many athletes even said afterwards that, wow, I would not do this on my own, right? And it was really good to kind of like to work on and explain, what truly the best easy pace, what does it mean, and how it's supposed to feel, and why we are big proponent of strength-based running, and what does it do to you, what does it do to you at the end of the races, and all that. And it was a great session.
Yeah. And also for us, our job is to keep everybody safe and to keep everybody organized. So there are times where we have to tell an athlete, you're going to do less than somebody else, or you're going to do a modification. But we do the same with with coaching, right? So some athletes may do 6 times an interval, and we may prescribe 4 times an interval. So it's no different when you're training alone. It just may feel when you're in a group environment, well, I'm doing less than somebody else, but we're giving you what we feel is the best for you, where you are in your athletic development.
Yeah, but the time base, it's the same.
Right, exactly.
Everybody were running for the same time, working out for the same time.
And then in the afternoon, we had, for something we've never done before, but it was just awesome, that we went over to the Boyd Wheels cycling facility, which is just a few miles down the road. We do have a partnership with them. So if anybody needs any wheels or has any question about race wheels, gravel wheels, training wheels, you can ask Corel about it. So we got to tour the facility for an hour, see how the wheels are made, learn about the programs that they offer and the different services that they offer athletes with their wheels. It was a really educational opportunity. And then afterwards, we stayed in the building because it was raining out, and we were able to do an educational skills and terrain management discussion. So it was really great just to be able to show some of these skills and really absorb the information without having to feel like we needed to train and to be outside and to get somewhere. So it was a really great session. We spent about 2.5 hours there, and I think the athletes really enjoyed it.
Yeah, after talking to athletes, I think this actually became one of the highlights of the whole 3-day camp.
Yeah.
And it was really neat to learn what it really takes to make a wheel.
When do you ever see a wheel being made?
Yeah, but what it takes to actually, before you even get to the production, all the planning and researching and testing and computer testing, before you even get to that.
Yeah.
So it was really neat.
Yeah. So then on Saturday, we started with a long course swim again, but the focus was on open water swimming. And a lot of our athletes mentioned about their nerves, or they want to get better at open water swimming. We do not do open water swimming in our early season camp just because the water is too cold in the lakes, but we could still simulate a lot of the same nerves, anxieties, and situations that our athletes would be in. So we took them through several different types of drills that would elevate the heart rate, require a lot of strength, sighting, to help them get more familiar, gave some good tips and cues. And then we finished with pretty much the best open water simulation we could think of, by jumping in as if you were jumping in off a dock, which we do at Chattanooga and Blue Ridge and many other races, swimming and sighting, being close to one another as you're swimming, doing open turn, so pretending like there was a buoy so you don't push off the wall, having to accelerate after the turn, and then getting out of the water and experiencing that high heart rate. So we did that twice at the end, and our athletes were pretty exhausted from that, but it really gave them the feeling that they were in a race. So then after that, we did a bike session and a bike run session. We had to change the location of our bike start because there was a barbecue festival going on at Trailblazer, and they took up the whole parking lot. So we had our plan B, worked out great. And Corel did an exceptional job working with people on their bike handling skills. So we rode about 12 miles out to a loop, and there was just a great opportunity for people just to get to know our terrain and put in some good miles. And then once he got out there, he took them through a few different sections of this loop that they ended up finishing with a time trial, but he allowed them to build some confidence by showing how to do things correctly.
Yeah. So It's one of our favorite loops, and it has a little bit of everything that you can practice. But this time around, we didn't really focus on how many loops we can pack in a certain time. We sectioned the loop, so we would stop at different segments and just practice a specific skills that were required to execute this piece of the road. Whether it was braking on the downhill, making the U-turn, making really sharp turn. At the speed, going downhill, going uphill, the gear choice. So all these things that we practice and over several times, and then athletes did their own time trial, one loop around that whole loop, and the goal was to not to race each other, but to do the best job you can with all the skills that you just learn and apply it and be very, very efficient on that loop.
Yeah.
And it worked great.
Yep. And the weather was great. It was sunny and warm, 70 degrees, a little windy. So it was a perfect day. So our athletes ended up with about 3 hours of on the bike time. So it was a really great, long, productive session. Then afterwards, we did a run workout, and we divided people up just based on the upcoming races that they had, who would benefit from a little longer of a run. So some people did 25 minutes, some people did 35 to 40 minutes of running. So Corel led one group, I led the other group, and we went through Travelers Rest, which there was so much going on in Travelers Rest. It felt like a race. There were cones, there was police officers because the Ville de Ville relay was going on. People were cheering for us.
Barbecue festival.
You could smell all the smells. So it couldn't have been more like a race. There was just no aid stations with Coke or and no ice cream at the finish. But yeah, so it was great. We had a hill towards the end of the run, which really helped athletes to think about how they would approach this in a race with pacing and form and managing that hill. It was also warm. Everybody fueled and hydrated well, which is one of the requirements at our camps. But everybody did a really great job. And as with all of our camps, we try to always finish together. So anytime someone finishes, we encourage them to loop back around, pick up somebody else, and then run in. So we can all kind of start together and finish together, but everybody is at their own pace. So it was a really productive session. And then today, I think, was the most fun that we've ever had at a camp. And it was the inaugural 2023 Trimarni Early Season Camp Duathlon times 5. Yeah. We should make a t-shirt for that. So yes, you heard me correct, that our athletes did a duathlon 5 times, which means they transitioned almost 10 times, 9 to 10 times. So we did a run and then a bike, and recon the course, which was almost about 3 miles of biking and almost a mile of running. And it was in Furman. And so we started with the run. We included a steep hill, and then the rest was flat. So we had a run course, and then we had a bike course, which it wasn't a race.
And we actually have a transition rack.
We had a transition rack and bike stands, so people could everyone could practice their transitions. And the run course was, there was flat, there were some hills, and we allowed our athletes that they were allowed to push it on the hills. But everywhere else, it was designed to focus on your skills. So hills, skills, and that was the focus. And everybody worked on their own, but it was great because everyone was just focused on what they were doing. So we started off with the first transition. They started just with their shoes on, ran to the bike to get their bike stuff. We had a mount line and a dismount line. And I would say that our athletes did not do so well. And I think if you're listening to this, you probably won't do so well either. And I mean that in a sincere way, and that transitions are hard. It gets your heart rate up. There's people around, there's people watching you, and it's something you just don't practice or able to experience on your own. And even our athletes said, coming here today, they were like, did I forget something? I'm nervous. There was a lot of the same feelings that you would have for a race, even though you're just with your friends at a training camp. And so they really had an opportunity over and over again, thinking about the order by which they wanted to do things. We had some athletes forget to take things off from their hydration belt, and they got on the bike, they would grab the wrong helmet, and these things happen on race day. So doing it over and over again quickly, where you had to do it fast. It's not like when you get home and then you let out your dog and then you fill up your flasks and then you tie your shoes. These athletes, they had to go through it super quick and experience it with that high heart rate, especially going from the bike to the run, with the hills and everything else involved. It was also kind of humid out, so that added to it. So it was a really great opportunity, and our athletes felt like it's something they wouldn't have done on their own, but they're able to walk away from this with a lot of confidence. So that was a little feedback from our camp. For those who attended, thank you for coming. We hope you enjoyed it and got a lot out of it. We look forward to our endurance camp later on, which we usually do a lot more miles, but we still have the education and focus like we do with all of our camps. And we also offer private camps. So if that's something that you would feel more comfortable in, we do that as well. So thank you guys for coming. Safe travels home for those who attended, and we will talk to you guys next week. Bye.
Cheers.